Welcome everyone to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We are so excited to have Neale Donald Walsch back again for the second time. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you. How can I serve you?
Well, I'm going to read your bio, but last time you already served us with all the wisdom. If anyone hasn't checked out that interview, go check it out. It changed my life. So I'm excited to ask Neale a bunch of follow-up questions today. But Neale Donald Walsch is a modern-day spiritual messenger who has published 33 titles in the past 20 years, including
39, but who's counting?
Oh, sorry about that. Including the Conversation with God books, which have been translated into 37 languages. Is it 37?
Yes.
30.
That number is correct.
Read by millions, many, many millions. He has lectured on every continent and facilitated extended personal renewal retreats across the globe, creating both short and year-long online programs, which you should all go check out, with the outreach designed to assist people in applying a revolutionary spiritual approach to life. Welcome back, Neale.
Thank you. And I want to say, if I can, Kyle, because that sounds like a person who's making a living doing this. Even when I hear those words, I hope that everyone who's watching knows that I'm not creating these programs to make a living. Just to make it clear.
Yeah.
Not bragging, just saying. I have, in fact, sold millions of books. And so I don't need to create an online program to try to make a living. So I don't want you to think that I'm one of these people who's hawking his wares or trying to sell, information to you. But I do think this. I honestly believe that the messages in Conversations with God are life-changing and world-changing. And if I didn't think that, I promise you I would take the time that it takes for me to do all that I'm doing. I'm an old guy. I'm going to be 80 years old next year, so I should be retired by all other measures. I should be retired. But no, I'm doing this work that I'm doing, as Kyle just said, producing programs, short-term programs, long-term programs, year-long programs, and doing interviews like this on a constant basis, because I think this information is what humanity has been looking for a very long time. I could be wrong about that. I could be totally wrong about that, but at least it's worth investigating. So I hope that those of you who are watching this interview who may not have read the Conversations with God books, or may have just read one or two and aren't aware that there are 9 books in the dialogue series, that you'll read all 9 books and then make up your mind. Does this make any sense to me? Does this seem like a solution to some of our challenges and problems? Or is this just a bunch of baloney? And you get to decide. You get to decide what's true for you about that. But I wanted to set the record straight, because when people read my bio, as you called it, then audiences might think, oh, another one of these guys try to sell us on his stuff. And I'm not really trying to do that. But if you had $1 million or $1 billion gift, if you were given $1 billion in the lottery, I'm sure you'd want to share it with all those whose lives you touch. And that's how I feel about this. So thanks for letting me give my little spiel here at the beginning, just to place it into context. How can I be of service to you in this moment?
Okay, well, I would love to continue from where we were in our last interview. And I loved talking about how God is a feeling, and this feeling of pure love. So I would like to hear what the definition is of pure love.
Thank you. That definition was given to me in the last and most recent book that I have produced, called The God Solution. And in The God Solution, by the way, I should tell people, it's not a dialogue book. That particular book is not a dialogue, back and forth, question and answer book. It's simply a short, relatively short narrative, but it is a narrative summary of what I consider to be the most important information, the most important message in the conversations with God, cosmology.
Mm.
And in that book, I asked what I think is the question on the minds of a lot of people. What's the point of having a God? What is the point of having a God if life is going to continue to be the way it is on this planet? One thing after the other, one war, one problem, one economic crisis, one health crisis, one thing after the other on the planet, to say nothing of the daily challenges of our individual lives. What's the point of having a God? And if God can't help us with these things or make these things all go away. So let me start, if I can, by saying, forgive me if I repeat some of the things I said before, but it's been my understanding that it's not God's job, nor is it God's function, nor is it God's desire to simply step into our lives and make all the problems go away. There are problems that we have created, that our civilization, that humanity has created. They're not problems that God foisted upon us. So these problems that we have created, God is giving us the power to resolve and to change, to solve our problems. God's desire is not to solve our problems for us, any more than, frankly, that you don't want to solve your problem. I mean, you want to solve the problems of your 25-year-old or 30-year-old child. You wouldn't step in and say, "Oh, yeah, I'll solve all your problems for you." I would think what you'd want to do is empower them by what you're sharing with them and the energy that you're sending them and what you're supplying them with, but to empower them to solve their own problems. So God's job is not to turn us into minions who just have to do what she says and then we'll have all of our problems go away. God wants us to experience ourselves as who we really are, which is the Creator. We are one with the divine. All the world's religions, and there are 4,000 of them, agree that the divine is the Creator. So if we are one with the divine, then we must be the Creator as well. And God's desire is for us to experience ourselves as that. Now, how does God create and how do we create? How are we given the opportunity to create? That's what the new definition is about. And that's what the God solution talks about. Because the reason that it's not working for us in our relationship with God and we have all the problems we have is that we have not understood who and what God is. So in the God solution, we are given a brand new definition of God, a 2-word definition: pure love. And, as I've said before in previous visits with you, whenever I say that God is pure love, someone inevitably thinks, if I'm giving a live lecture, someone will actually stand up in the back of the room and say, "Oh, Neale, come on, give me something new to work with." We all know that God is love. All the world's religions agree on that. We may not agree on everything else, but the religions agree on that. God is love. And I have to say to them, wait a minute, I didn't say God is love. I said God is pure love. And there's a huge difference. Pure love is a love that needs, expects, requires, and demands nothing in return. And I really mean NOTHING, nothing. Not even a smile in the morning. Not even, "Honey, can I do something for you?" Not even any return energy coming back to us from the other person at all. If I love you because of the energy that I think I can get from you for loving you, then I'm simply loving myself, using you as an instrument through which I can serve myself. But if I can love you purely and simply because of who you are, because I get who you are, and I adore it, I love it completely. If I never got another thing from you, not a smile, not a look, not a word, nothing at all from you would not stop me from loving you. That's pure love. Most of the people on the planet have not learned how to even love the person on the pillow next to them, much less the person across the street or the person around the world. We want stuff back. We think we deserve stuff back. We think, doggone it, I deserve it. I've given all of my love to this person, and I deserve to get something back.
Mm.
And so we treat each other that way, even though we will seldom acknowledge it, seldom really admit that that's exactly what we're doing. But we are playing a quid pro quo game. I would almost call it tit for tat, but I don't want to get into that because that's a whole different area. So, but we don't want to play quid pro quo. I'll give you this, you give me that. But we are doing it, whether we know it or not. And the proof of that is the divorce rate, which is now sky high.
Mm.
And sometimes those divorces, to be fair, are important and major decisions that we really should make because we're being mistreated. Not only are we not getting what we hope to get, but we're actually being mistreated, abused physically or verbally abused. But absent that, the majority of the divorces are simply because people are not getting out of the relationship what they thought they should have gotten out of the relationship. And because they feel the relationship is stopping them somehow from experiencing themselves and what they wish to be, do, and have in their life, that the relationship is stopping them from doing that. So what I'm suggesting to people is when we have a new kind of relationship with our significant other, with the person who's sharing our life with us, then we can begin to have a new relationship, in fact, with the neighbor across the street or the person around the world. We can, most important of all, begin to have a new relationship with ourselves and a new relationship with God. Asking God for nothing. God, I don't love you because what you can give me or what I think I need or want from you. I simply love you because of who you are, the most magnificent, extraordinary, wonderful essence in the universe. And that's enough for me. Because, by the way, that's how God loves us. See, God doesn't need anything back from us. But there's a very good reason why God doesn't need anything back from us and we need things back from each other. The reason God doesn't need anything back from us is because God is everything we could possibly give to God. What could we give to God that God is not already? So God is without need of any kind. In fact, need is the first illusion of the 10 illusions of humans, that need exists. We think that we need certain things in order to be happy, fulfilled, joyous, and in order to be fully who we really are. But when we understand who we really are, that we are in fact individuations of divinity, that we are in fact singularizations of the singularity, that we are in fact God in particular form, then we realize that we need nothing to be happy either. Kyle, Leah, I learned this experientially. I didn't learn this conceptually. I didn't learn this because somebody said a lot of words to me, or even because God said those words to me. I learned this on the street because I lived on the sidewalk, as you know, for a year of my life. Not a couple of bad weeks or a tough couple of months, but for a solid year of my life, I was out there as a street person, going from human being to human being with my hand out. Could you spare anything? Anything at all to help? Anything would help. And I had some people say to me, all I have is 50 cents. I said, you know what? If I got 50 cents from every person that I asked today, I could actually have a hamburger before the day was out. And I wouldn't have to go without a meal today. I could have something, some little bit to eat. Please, if you have 50 cents to spare, put it in my hand. And when nightfall came, I slept on the concrete. Or if I could find a patch of dirt, patch of grass where police wouldn't ask me to move on, come on, move on. I slept on that patch of grass. I wound up finally getting a tent that I got from my former wife. She had some pity on me. God bless her. I don't mean this in any negative way. She was very kind. She said, oh, here, take the tent that we had, for camping. So I was able to get out from under the rain, but not out from the cold. It's still pretty cold in the tent. There's no heating, there's no radiator, there's no heat in there. So in February and March, in the city where I lived, pretty doggone cold. January, December, very cold. So I was still sleeping and shivering in that tent and waking up every morning without a nickel to my name. But you know what? There were days, and more than one or two, when I was totally happy. When I was totally content. When I was totally okay and even joyous with regard to life. Seeing a sunset, a beautiful sunset. I remember one time during that year, I sat in a park. I was in a park outside of the city where I lived. And I was watching the sun go down, and my eyes started to well up with tears. Just the kind of tears that you experience when you're seeing something too awesome, too beautiful, too magnificent, too internally life impacting for words. And so the tears start streaming down your face. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. So I experienced being happy with nothing. I mean, I really didn't, I didn't have a car. Incidentally, at the same time, I didn't have an old jalopy, it was stolen.
Oh.
So my car was actually taken from me. I had one pair of shoes, 2 pair of jeans, 3 shirts. That's it. That was the sum total of my worldly possessions. I got to be fair, I had one other thing. My former wife also gave me my camping stove. She said, if you want to cook, if you manage to get some food together. But I didn't have the money to buy the propane gas for it. So I had to beg for the money. And when I finally scraped together, a few dollars, I could go buy a tank of propane, attach it to the stove. And if I managed to get some uncooked food, I could actually cook it on the stove. Now you might say, well, if you had a stove, put it in the tent and warm up your tent at night, but you can't sleep in a tent that's filled with the gas from a propane tank. So that was not part of the solution. So I learned, I almost want to say I learned the hard way. It turned out to be the easy way. I learned that there was nothing in particular that I needed to be happy. And if I could take that joy in life, just that happiness in being alive, into my life when I resolved some of the challenges I was facing and actually wound up having a job and having a place to live and having more than one pair of shoes and so forth. When I got back to so-called real life, if I could still take that happiness with me that I discovered in the park when I had nothing, then I would have unlocked a huge secret of life. And there was only one way that I could find that happiness under normal circumstances, rather than being on the park or on the street in the park. And that way was for me to become clear on who I am and why I'm here. Once I got very clear why I'm here, that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. These are just tools that I have. This is just a piece of equipment. But who I am as a spiritual entity and why I'm here is to announce and declare, express and fulfill, become and experience my true identity as an individuation of divinity. Once that became clear to me, my happiness was easy to experience because all I had to do was experience my true identity. And that was possible for me to do, with or without 20 pair of shoes in the closet. You know what that did? That wound up doing for me? Even when I got back into the swing of things and I wound up having a few clothes and a few things, I noticed with a lot less than I used to think was necessary. I have more than one pair of shoes. I have 2, actually. But who needs more than 2 pair of shoes? One for, going out, big events, and, want to dress up, and one for everyday wear. Who needs? And then I got a 3rd pair because I decided to get a pair of sneakers for certain weather conditions and so forth. So now I have 3 pair of shoes. If a person can't live with 3 pair of shoes, you got a problem. So what I wound up experiencing in my life is that all the stuff of my life, all the things that I have had were reduced, trimmed down to what I actually felt I could do without. But that was really very little. And the same thing, not only with my possessions, but with my habits. In other words, the food that I eat and the things that I do in my life. I wound up changing what I thought I needed to eat or needed to do in order to be happy. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. You fell into the trap again. You asked me a 20-second question, and you get a 15-minute answer.
Yeah, so it's beautiful to hear you talk about pure love. From my experience, like working with a lot of people, there's so many people today that are stuck in this state of fear. Like it's almost like they've been living in survival their whole life, and they want to feel grateful, they want to feel appreciative, but it's like these patterns.
Well, they would feel grateful and they would feel appreciative and they would fear nothing if they realized what they're doing here, who they are and why they're here. As long as I think I am this, no, you don't understand, Neale. I really am this body. I really am this mind. As long as I think this is who I am going to be living in fear. Even when I have what I think I need, my fear will be that it will go away, that somehow I'll lose it.
Right.
So, and by the way, I felt that way about the first 6 women that I fell in love with, which is why I wound up having, why I wound up having 6 divorces. Because as soon as I fell in love with them, I thought, well, it's not going to last. It can't last. I began fearing. I began to fear losing them. And so, and whatever I gathered together, whether it was certain income or a wonderful job, I did live in constant fear. Now, some people might say, Neale, let's be realistic. People have a reason to fear. Do the people in Ukraine, for instance, have a reason to fear? Do the people with COVID? We've lost millions of people to COVID who've died of that disease. Do people with COVID have a reason to fear? You certainly can't be saying, Neale, that there's no reason for us to be afraid if we're living a normal life. Even if we are not obsessed with our possessions, and trying to get what we think we need to be happy. But the answer is that spiritual masters are not even afraid of those things I've mentioned, because their physical life is not the beginning and the end all. See, once you don't fear no longer living in your body, once you're clear that your experience in your body as Neale, as Kyle, as Leah, once you are clear that that's not the beginning and the end of anything, but just another, to use a metaphor, another chapter in the eternal story of who you really are, then you aren't even afraid of dying. And as my friend Elizabeth Kubler-Ross used to say, when you're no longer afraid of dying, you're not afraid of living. And your fear goes away. And you wind up living a fearless life in this body. Well, there's an irony with that. The irony is that when you change the energy from being afraid of the things that many of us are legitimately afraid of, because we think that we are this, and we think this is the only life we're ever going to have. But when we stop being afraid, the irony is that it shifts the energy with which we encounter life itself. It shifts the energy to project into life. Because that which you fear, you attract. Fear is an energy like any other energy, and it's like a magnet, and you will draw to you some version. Maybe it's a small version or a larger version, but you will attract that negative energetic to you, so long as you live in fear. But if you are fearless, then your whole life will shift in terms of the energetic that you're sending into the world.
Mm.
And my experience has been that you will experience all the things that you were struggling and stressing and straining for
Mm.
before you let go of your fear that you weren't going to have it, or that if you got it, you'd lose it.
Mm.
So, it's not, people have said to me, well, Neale, easy for you to say because you're almost 80 years old. But honestly, for the past 30 years or so, since I had my conversations with God, I haven't feared the stuff that people are afraid of.
Mm.
And I would be like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I would be, in that movie. If somebody really, if somebody came to my house and put a gun to my head, by the way, I've actually had a gun put to my head,
Mm.
a loaded gun, 3 times in my life, not once.
Mm.
So I know the feeling. But if somebody did it to me now, but somebody, I don't know, broke into my house or whatever, and put a gun to my head, I would say, "You're not scaring me.
Mm.
The worst you can do is pull the trigger and end my life." I have to tell you that that's okay with me, because I know where I'm going. I know who I am.
Mm.
I know what's coming next.
Mm.
So I know all about that. And so when you don't find yourself being afraid to die, then you're not afraid to live.
Mm.
And that new energetic draws to you what fearlessness produces. You take risks you never would have taken. You take a little gamble here and there. I mean, gambling with money, but you gamble and you take certain risks in life. You do stuff that you probably wouldn't have done before. You say things you probably wouldn't have said before. You even have the chutzpah to put a book out called Conversations with God.
Mm.
And to say to people, no, I had a conversation with God.
Mm.
And I don't need you to believe it. If you don't believe it, that's okay with me. I don't need you to believe it. But I'm telling you what my experience was. I've had a conversation with God. And that's allowed me to change my relationship, not just with God, not just with myself, but even with my beautiful, darling 7th wife,
Mm.
Mm.
who's been with me now 15 years. Because I don't need her. And the last thing she needs is me.
Mm.
My wife is a wonderful human being, generous, kind, caring, sensitive, compassionate, and, excuse me, but physically gorgeous.
Mm.
And she needs me like she needs a hole in her head. She could have anybody that she wanted,
Mm.
not unlike Leah,
Mm.
who could clearly have anybody she wants.
Mm.
So she doesn't need Kyle
Mm.
for anything. And as long as she's clear that she doesn't need Kyle to be happy, then she can love Kyle, not
Mm.
for what she gets from him, but simply because of what he is. Standing over there all by himself, giving her nothing at all.
Mm.
Because she could look at Kyle in the face and say, if you think I need you, think again.
Mm.
I'll go out on the sidewalk here in about 5 minutes and have all the men I want.
Yeah.
And Kyle, being a very handsome, good-looking guy with a wonderful personality, could say the exact same thing. So we could all say that to each other in this world, because each one of us is magnificent,
Mm.
glorious human being, if we know who we really are.
Mm.
Even somebody as ugly as me could claim magnificence.
Mm.
So the trick to life, guys, is to just for us to know who we really are, and then have the chutzpah to demonstrate it, have the commitment to demonstrate it with everything that we think and say and do.
Mm.
Every word that we utter, every thought that we entertain for more than a moment. Passing thoughts, fair enough, but any thought that we hang on to, any word that we utter, anything that we do, any action that we take, if we decide this is my best idea of who and what divinity is.
Mm.
Tell me at the end of your life that you weren't happy. And I'd be saying to you, liar, liar, pants on fire. Because there's no way you cannot be happy when you're demonstrating divinity in you, through you, as you, in every moment of your life, even in the final moments of your life, even as you're leaving your body again, as you've done so many times before, leaving physicality, coming back into physicality, leaving physicality, coming back into physicality. Here we go again. For the sheer joy of it, of demonstrating who you really are. Try just walking down the street one day. Just decide, today I'm going to go downtown. And whoever I meet, whoever I run into, however it looks, I'm just going to use this little excursion. I'm going to go down to the supermarket and pick up some groceries or whatever. But allow yourself to think, on this excursion, I'm going to use it to be who I really am at the highest level. Not just, if the occasion arises, but to actually go out for that purpose with that intention. And watch yourself doing stuff, saying stuff that it would never have occurred to you to do or say. Watch yourself. And then, did I ever tell you my supermarket story with the lady? Let me share with you my supermarket story, because one day I went to the supermarket. This was after I had my conversations with God, after I internalized all that I'm sharing with you, right? So now I'm going to the store, and I thought, well, I got to go to the store. There's some things I got to get. My sweetheart wasn't really feeling well that day. She said, sweetheart, would you just pick up the groceries? I said, sure, of course. So I got in the car and I thought, well, I had things I really wanted to do today, but then my mind clicked in and I thought, wait a minute. Do you think you're really going to the supermarket to get bread, butter, eggs, and milk? That's not why you're going to the supermarket. You're not going here to do something. You're going here to be something. So I challenged myself with the same challenge I just talked to you about a moment ago. I said to myself, I wonder what this experience would be like if I got that I was going to this supermarket to be who I really am. And that getting bread, butter, eggs, and milk is simply something that I was doing while I was being who I really am. So I went into the supermarket with that intention. And I'd been there many times before, so I knew exactly where the bread was, where the butter was, where the eggs and the milk were. I knew exactly, so I was kind of like on automatic, just going to those things, gathering a couple of things, putting it in my cart. And when I got through the produce department, I saw a lady there with her little child, she might have been a year and a half or two, maybe she was 3 years old. Yeah, she was about 3 or 3.5, sitting in the basket, in the cart. And the little girl was reaching over to she was grabbing grapes from the produce department. They were in the fruit section. And she was eating the grapes, and her mother said, oh, sweetheart, don't eat the grapes. But she couldn't stop the little girl from eating the grapes. So the little girl reached down and grabbed a third one. And finally, the mom just tapped her on the hand. She didn't really slap her hard, but she gave her a little tap. She said, honey, grapes. Mommy said, don't touch the grapes. Of course, the girl was more hurt by the gesture than she was by the slap. So she started to cry. My heart broke. I was watching this from 20 feet away, and my heart broke. I thought, I don't think it's necessary to use that particular gesture to encourage the child to change her behavior. So I walked over to her. I said, excuse me, ma'am. I'd like to make an observation. I know I don't know you and we're total strangers, but forgive me, but I just wanted to share with you that it's not necessary for you to hit your child, even gently, to use that kind of a gesture to get her to stop doing what you don't want her to do. And this woman blasted me out of the store. I mean, she looked at me, her eyes got wide as $50. Talk about $50. She looked at me like, how dare you? Who do you think you are? What do you imagine? How dare you come over here and talk to me about how I should raise my child? I said, and when she got done blasting me, I said, you're right. You're totally right. I mean it sincerely, one person to another, sincerely. My humble apologies. I have no right to come here and tell you how to behave. It just broke my heart to see you using that particular method to change your child's behavior. And somehow, I don't know whether my energy of apologizing softened her a bit, but she looked at me, her eyes changed, her face got softer, and she said, I know.
Mm.
If you knew what I've gone through just this morning alone, not counting the past 3 days, you would never have said that to me. So I'm so sorry. What's going on? Tell me. My husband lost his job. My father died 2 days ago. And she went on with a list of unbelievable things that had happened in the past 3 days.
Mm.
And we sat there. We stood there with each other and began talking to each other like two people who suddenly cared, a little bit at least about each other for no particular reason. We're total strangers.
Mm.
But mind you, we're sharing, and I'm saying to her, oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry that happened. And I gave her some ideas that I had from my conversations with God. And she received that really. She said, oh, those are wonderful ways of looking at things. She said, what are you? Some kind of minister? And I looked at her and I said, yes, that's what I am. Some kind of minister. And I grabbed her hand and I said, just anything I can do for you. Just anything that you need. I said, I know that your husband just lost his job. Let me help you now. Would you let me pay for your groceries? She said, no, I couldn't do that. I said, yes, you could. Yes, you could. She did a basket full of groceries. I said, come on, let me at least give you a little gift. A gift from a stranger, it won't hurt. She said, gosh, I've never met a person like this. I said, neither have I. I'm deciding to be who I really am. Full out. You know what she was doing, by the way, at the end of our conversation? She picked up a little grape from the fruits and handed it to her child.
Nice.
I know she wanted to keep her occupied and not interfere with our conversation, but whatever. Here she was giving her. And we went through the line, and and I said, she went ahead of me, and I came behind her and I said, I'd like to pay for her groceries. It wasn't that much, $65 or $70. It wasn't like $2,000, but I put my credit card down and I paid for her groceries. And I paid for my groceries. She said, well, you're very, very, very kind. I said, don't let yourself need anything. Here's my email address. Here's my telephone number. I said, I don't want anything from you. I don't need anything from you. But don't let yourself need. If you're in trouble, give me a telephone call. She said, gosh. So then I left the store and I walked out of the store. When I got around the corner of that big brick store, I said to nobody was looking at me. Nobody was watching. I got around the corner and I went, yes. That's who I am. I bought it for $67. 12 minutes of my time. I bought that experience of who I really am. I brought it to me. I didn't buy it. I brought it to me. Brought myself that experience. I heard a guy say, sir, mister, sir. I turned around. The manager of the store, he came around. I said, oh, I'm going to hear about it now. Don't. He said, do you want your groceries? You left your card inside. Kyle, I forgot what I was even doing there. I was so caught in what I was being, but I forgot that I went for bread, butter, eggs, and milk. That's my supermarket story. And it's a story of how life can be different when you decide what it's really all about. Oh, I get it. It looks like I'm going to the store,
Mm.
I see what it looks like.
Mm.
And when we take that attitude into every moment, washing the dishes, going to the store,
Mm.
mopping the floor, making love,
Mm.
we take that idea into every moment of our life. Everything changes.
Mm.
I could, of course, be wrong about all of this. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I do think that just hearing that concept of being pure love can sound a little foreign or kind of intimidating. But I loved in your book, you walked through an exercise where you recall giving love to someone who doesn't deserve it. And do you know what I'm talking about? That little exercise where you have people recall a time where they just gave love that was completely undeserved, or maybe they should have even technically given the person anger. I would love, if you were willing, if you could walk us through that little exercise, because I do think experiencing it is so much better than
Well, yeah,
actual.
it's like, let yourself, if you encounter, it's not an exercise you can do arbitrarily. I mean, you can do it by yourself in your own bedroom all alone,
Hmm.
but it really is powerful if you encounter somebody. Maybe you're at a cocktail party, or maybe you are in fact at the supermarket or wherever you are, and you encounter somebody, or maybe it's the neighbor across the street, whoever it is, that you feel did something to you that you can't forgive, or that you're not happy about, at the very least, that really hurt you or injured you in some way. I'm going to give you an example from my own life. This is years ago, prior to my present relationship. But I happened to run into a man who had an affair with my then wife.
Ooh.
Yeah. I had every reason to just punch him in the nose, or at least say something to him, or at the very least, just walk by him and ignore him.
Mm.
But I had every reason not to send him my energy of love. But I knew who he was, what he had done, the role he had played in my life, the role he had played in my former wife's life. I knew the whole story. It was I wasn't even trying to pretend that play like, well, let's just pretend I don't know. No, I knew, and he knew that I knew.
Mm.
I allowed him to know that I knew. So I said to him, how are things with you?
Mm.
How are things? I actually met him at a party. How are things going? He said, oh, okay. I said, well, I hope you're doing well.
Mm.
And that wonderful line from, Spock, live long and prosper. And I actually said it to him jokingly. I just gave him a little punch on the shoulder with my little fist, like a little guy thing. And I said, hey, buddy, live long and prosper. And I turned around and I thought, it felt so much better saying, you son of a gun. How dare you even come up to me and talk to me at this party? So I think that's an exercise we can do if we happen to encounter, or even if we think of, without encountering them physically, someone who has injured us, or who we imagine has injured us in some way. Because the soul of you can't be injured at all, any more than a 3-month-old child could injure you. You can't be injured by someone who's acting like a child. Not at the level of your soul. They can take your money, they can take your stuff, they can take your spouse, they can have an affair and steal your spouse from you. They can do what. And if I were you, Kyle, I would worry about that. Because I'm not, if I have another third interview with Leah, you're going to be in deep trouble.
Okay.
But no matter what they were to do, You can think of them, do the exercise just by being alone with yourself, and then sit down and write a letter, a loving letter to that person that simply sends them love, allows them to know that you understand. All of us make mistakes. All of us do things that we wish we hadn't done. You know, I like to get up in front of audiences and say to me, all of you who have never done anything in your life that you wish you hadn't done, all of you who have never hurt or injured another person and you wish you hadn't done it, please stand up. Nobody stands up. Then I say to my audience, I see. So we're both in the same boat, are we? So pick up your paddle and let's both row our way back home. And we'll only do it on the oars of love. It's the only way we'll do it. So if I can love you, even when I perceive that you have somehow hurt or injured me, then I know who I really am. Oh, and by the way, then I know who you really are as well.
Well,
Careful, this stuff can change the world. But
yeah.
this is all every master, and I'm not that. Of course, I know you. I know your audience understands that. I don't claim to be that. But those who have been recognized as spiritual masters, we know their names throughout human history, men and women through the years. They've been saying this for years. This is not new information. This is not new age philosophy. We've been told this by every master from the beginning of time. Question is, when will we listen? And when will we put it into effect in our life? But last thing, you can't do it if you're doing it to get an outcome, to create an outcome. You can't do it, oh, now my life will turn into roses. Now my life will be better. Because then you're violating the first law of pure love, which is giving love in order to get something in return. You can only do it hoping for nothing in return, even if your life turns to who knows what the next day, even if that's totally okay with you. It's like, when you stop to help an older gentleman change his flat tire on the highway. You just pull off, you see the guy about 500 yards ahead of you. Oh, that guy's having a hard time even get the tire off the car, much less changing it. So you pull over, step out of the car. Hey, pal, can I give you a hand? Well, he said, to be honest, I could use a little help here. I guess I'm a little older than I thought I was. I was going to get out and change the tire, but probably should just have called somebody. I said, well, I'm right here. Let me give you a hand. Come on, we can do this together. He helped the guy get the tire, the new tire, spare tire back on the car. Take the flat tire, throw it in the trunk. Say, okay, buddy, have a good day. And he drives away. He says, hey, thanks. Appreciate that. And you sit in the car and have the same exact feeling that I had at the supermarket. Now that's who I am.
Yeah.
Needing and requiring nothing in return, and knowing you're probably going to get nothing in return.
Yeah. I think you covered everything. All my questions that I had, you covered them in that. So yeah, this has been amazing, and appreciate it. I still will invite you back for a third interview, even if you're interested in Leah. But
well, I say the same thing every time, so I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't have anything new to add, but yeah, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for another awesome interview.
Yes, and I will eternally have more questions because I'm the questioner.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
feel
write 'em
totally
down.
complete, but I have more questions.
You know, we still have some time if you have a question that you want
Well,
to ask
I
now.
actually truly I feel so complete in this moment. I feel
Yeah.
like
Okay,
we ended it and the symphony sounds perfect, but
I get it.
when we go silent, I'll have,
Mm,
6 more things I want to ask you.
I get it.
Yeah.
That's something I totally understand. So thanks. And we'll
Thank you.
see you again.
Thank you,
Yes.
Neale.
Thank you. And we're sending love to everybody.